Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Collect Creative Initiative. My name is Aisha Numa, and I am very excited to be bringing in the fantastic Manuel Puro in just a moment. He is going to be talking to us all things self-taped. Now, this is intended to be a bit of an interactive talk. It's very much a Q&A for you guys. So if anybody is watching us live, you are more than welcome to ask your own questions. All you need to do to ask your questions is just subscribe to the CCI YouTube channel, and then you will see a live chat box pop up. That box won't pop up if you're not subscribed, so make sure you are subscribed. You are more than welcome to ask Manuel any questions that you would like during this Q&A, and we will work through as many of them as we can. All right then, here we go. Hello.
Hi, Aisha. Oh, you're so professional. It's crazy. Just like that. Boom, straight away, bang, there you go.
I don't know about that. I'm just here to have a chat.
No,
I don't know about professional.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's great. Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Well, thank you very much. We've got a few watching already. Do say hello if you're here. It's always nice. I don't know about you, Manuel, but I always like to know who I'm talking to, who's out there in the wider world.
Well, it's nice to even have you here, actually. Normally, I'm just talking in an empty room and it's just me, and you're never quite sure if anyone's even paying any attention. But yeah.
I feel the same. It's quite nice to actually have another human to bounce off. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, because we are, of course, here to talk about self-tapes today, but before we kind of get going on the technical details, maybe you could just introduce yourself to us all a bit, tell us about who you are and what you do.
All right. Yes. Well, I'm Manuel, and I'm a casting director. Great stuff. So yes. Should I say kind of what the job entails? I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always useful. I think we have a lot of performers watching, so it's probably useful to know kind of how it works from the other side of the table.
Yeah. No. Indeed. Yes. So I'm sort of the middleman between a production and actors and talent. And it's such a strange job because you don't really need any kind of qualifications or anything. You just need to, I mean, it's a sort of a job that anybody could do. You need to watch lots of films and watch lots of TV and kind of be interested in actors, I suppose. And so I get employed by the production, which would usually be a director and a producer. And that's my kind of core team of people that I would work with. And I head up the casting department. And usually I get brought on board a project very, very early, kind of way before, location people and way before costume people and all of that. I'll kind of, I'll get brought on board sort of very early on and more or less just work with the producer, with the director, start to populate the cast for any kind of project. And like I said, I've just, there's so many actors out there and so many, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so my job is really to kind of marshal all sorts of suggestions and ideas and different ideas for a director and a producer. I mean, to be honest, it's like most jobs, we're not really needed. I'm sure most people have done a bit of editing. So, do you really need an editor? But
I think you don't do yourself justice saying you're not needed.
No, but it's one of those things where you realize it's because you specialize in this particular area, it becomes a bit more efficient to use someone like me to wrangle all the different agents, all the different actors, and because again I have relationships with so many different agents all the time. It's just easier to have me as a middle person handling all of that on behalf of a production, and we take it right from I think most casting directors take it, maybe not if when you're working on kind of BBC projects and things like that, but we take we take the process right from the beginning to the end. So from the audition process and auditioning different actors and recalling them, but then we take care of negotiating the contracts on behalf of the producer, but we're quite involved with negotiating the contract, right? So until the actor kind of turns up on set, and then I hand them over to somebody else. There'll be somebody else that kind of, once I've got a signed contract, that's it. My bit is over.
You let them loose out into the world.
Yeah, well, that's it. But it's so there's always a lot of different parts to it. There's a really creative part in terms of imagining what roles are like and who could play those kind of roles. But then there's a whole bunch of organizational stuff just in terms of arranging auditions. Then there's a kind of maths involved because like any other head of department, I get given a budget. There's a cast budget, which is a pretty fixed cash budget, cast budget. Again, I have to try and figure out what's the most efficient way of spending that money, because cast, it's not just about getting the right actor and the good actor. It's a lot of times casting is a lot of it's to do with trying to get actors with a certain profile so that your project has more visibility in the marketplace. And so I have to kind of figure out, yes, how do you apportion a limited budget amongst all the cast, and how do you make it fair, and how do people get paid the right amount? And then there's all technical stuff like all this self-taping stuff. So it's quite it's kind of quite varied. I do quite enjoy it. And then there's negotiations as well, which is a different skill set altogether. And so it's I kind of quite like that it has a lot of different facets to it.
Well, I feel like this should be an advert for being a casting director.
Yeah.
So this is really a promo.
Sign up. Yeah. You like watching TV? Become a casting director. You like not messing around with actors? Become a casting director. Yeah. I mean, I feel like
there's probably a few people watching now going, that sounds like me.
Actually, yeah. I mean, seriously, I mean, you know, occasionally it feels like a real job, like anything. There's the boring bits, but I think I'm very lucky. There's a huge amount of it just feels like you're playing, and certainly when it gets to the not that we've had them recently, but when it gets to face-to-face auditions and you're in a room with a bunch of actors and a camera, and you know, then it's just a brilliant job, because those days just fly by, and you just can't. I can't believe that I'm allowed to do this and allowed to muck around and with actors.
As an actor, I feel the same. It's definitely playing, and I agree with you that it sometimes feels like there's the real job, boring days, but most of the time, the playing in a room, like you say. Yeah,
just messing around and just kind of trying to have fun and trying to be inventive, and you know, and being surrounded by inventive and creative people all the time. It's a nice thing. It's very good.
So there you go. That is Manuel Puro, everybody. Moving on to what is kind of the main crux of today, all about self-tapes. That's what everybody wants to know about. So we'll start off with kind of the beginning. Before you maybe have even received a self-tape, if you're an actor, what would you say are the kind of best tools that an actor should have available to them ready for a self-tape? So what kind of equipment might they need if they have never done a self-tape before?
Yeah, well, I think your phone is your best friend in a way. You know, it's going to have everything on it. It's usually it has everything on it, and so it doesn't even have to be super fancy or super modern, as long as it's got a camera. Because yes, you can film on it and you can edit with it, and you'll always have it with you as well, which is sort of you know, we try and give people, I personally try and give actors quite a lot of notice when we're asking for self-tapes, so that you've got time to you know, give it your best shot. But sometimes there are last minute things, and invariably that, you know, you're not always going to be walking around with a laptop and a camera and loads of lights and lots of different things, but you're almost always going to have your phone. And so I think it's really good if you're able to learn at least how to do all the basics on your phone, and then if you want to embellish it with other bits of equipment and other bits of kit and things like that eventually, then that's all good. But if you know the basics on your phone, you'll never be caught short, and you will be able to hopefully turn around a self-tape really quickly. Like I said, I don't think any casting director goes out of their way. I know that it's a bit of a gripe. I think sometimes people, you know, actors complain with due reason that they complain that they're not given enough time. You know, the turnaround can be really, really quick. And so I think if you've got your phone, then at least you know that you can do it. And like I said, I don't think any casting director does it on purpose. It's not that we gleefully sit around for days and days and then go, right, this is probably the worst time to ask for self-tapes, let's do it. But I think all of us would prefer to have lots more time, so we're not stressed out as well. But sometimes
I'm just sort of picturing somebody sitting there with a white cat going, haha, I'm not going to send it today.
Yeah, I know, I've got all these roles and we're filming in a couple of days, but I'm going to wait right until the edge, right until the limit, and then boom, let's just create a flurry of activity. I mean, we don't really want to do that, but I do know it happens, and it does happen that you need to sometimes be able to do it very quickly. And so again, your phone is I think phone is probably the simplest thing to kind of have and to learn how to use to begin with.
And something that hopefully most people would already have available to them. Doesn't necessarily matter where they are in the world, because, you know, some people do sometimes get caught out with their self-tapes if they're away or whatever. It's something that it's unlike an audition in the sense that you can be ready to do it wherever, as long as you've got that phone with you. So that's useful.
Yeah, no, indeed, and I really do. I have, I mean, I talk a lot about, hang on, I've got some little Post-it notes. I talk a lot about having kind of Post-it notes as your eye lines and markers, but I know actors that have got, so this is like a little square Post-it note, but I know some actors that literally inside their phone cases, they have a little, they'll have a couple of, I don't know what you call them, the ones where you sign, when you sign contracts, there's these little skinny,
oh yeah, the kind of long rectangular ones.
Yeah, little skinny Post-its, and they'll have a few of those that they will have them just there in their phones, so that they know that they can use those as eye lines wherever they are if they do get one of these kind of last minute self tapes. So, but anyway, yes, yeah, phone is important.
So
it's good.
A phone and maybe some Post-it notes. That's an interesting top tip. Carry some Post-it notes around with you. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so we did talk a little bit already about sort of the last minute self-tape, and we know that it's not on purpose. Nobody's ever deliberately giving you such a fast turnaround. But if we do get caught out with those ones where they go, we desperately need this in, and somebody, for example, might not have a reader available to them in that short window, do you have any suggestions on what's the best way to go about that? You know, there are all sorts of apps you can use, or you can try and get somebody to phone in and do it on speaker, or there are kind of various schools of thought. What would you say is the best way to deal with it if you don't have a reader live there for you?
Yeah, if you don't have I've been quite interested in Zoom, people using Zoom actually, and Zoom's quite a clever, there is a way of doing it where where if you make a Zoom call to somebody and then you pin yourself. I don't know how you've done it here very cleverly with all our backgrounds and stuff, and I know this isn't quite Zoom, but on Zoom, if there's an option where you can pin yourself, and then you can you can record. You can use Zoom as the app that records as well, and that seems to work really well. So if you can at least have, if you have, I would probably have like a little gang of actory friends that you can call on at a moment's notice, and actually, I'd make sure you have a variety of ages and a variety of genders and a variety, so that you figure out what's the best. Because in real auditions, in face-to-face auditions, I cast my readers quite carefully. I cast my readers to really fit the roles, hopefully, that they're reading for, because it helps the actor that's auditioning. You know, if they're supposed to, yeah, you want the actor reading to be as close as possible to what the characters are that you're reading with. So yeah, have a little gang of actors, and then if you call them on Zoom and you pin yourself, and I think some actors use Zoom on a separate device, and they'll film with, say, this is my laptop, and they'll have their phone with Zoom going on over here. But don't do that. Just use Zoom for the whole thing. Have the actor make a call on Zoom, have the other actor there speaking to you. You pin yourself and you record, and record using your Zoom app. And actually, and all the voice quality sounds good. I mean, you have to have a reasonably good internet connection. But the voice, the other person's voice sounds very natural, and it sounds as though they are in the room with you if you've got a good enough connection. And
yeah, and so I think that's a good example, actually, because we can hear even now that you sound very natural to me coming out of my screen. So you can see already that has a lot of potential to work.
Yeah, and it does. It's quite good. And I think that depending on what device you're on and what operating system you've got, when you pin yourself, you can still see the other person. And I think sometimes you can even move that little, there'll be like a little image, a little thumbnail of the person you're talking to. And you can even move that around and make it so you can shift your eye line a little bit. And if you can't do that, then just kind of use your trusty Post-it note or a piece of blue tack or something to be your eye line. But yeah, I think I mean, you can leave gaps, of course. You can always leave gaps, but I do think that's the least favorite option for most casting directors. It's always nice to hear the other lines, but if you are going to use some kind of technology, you want the other voice to sound as natural as possible. And I think sometimes if you use a couple of different devices, one to record yourself and one to play out the other voice, whether you've recorded it yourself or whether you're on a Zoom call or a Skype call, it can sound really tinny. The other voice can sound really artificial, and I think that's what you have to try and avoid. So if you're not using Zoom in its entirety to record you and the other actor, I'm always suggesting try and have try and find a Bluetooth speaker, or the best speaker that you can possibly find. iPads are actually quite good. An iPad speaker is quite good, and you can film on your phone and have an iPad, and the iPad speaker actually sounds quite authentic. You don't have so much tinniness. But if you sometimes if you use a phone or something else, or like a really old recorder, if the voice sounds artificial, it just pulls you out of it. So if at all possible, use a Bluetooth speaker, or the best speaker that you can find to play the other voice out. To play the other voice. And then there is a technical one as well, where you can do a voiceover, and I'm a big fan of that, where you leave gaps during your performance. So you do your bit, but you're leaving gaps where the other person speaks. I mean, you really need to know both sides of the script, and you need to judge the timings. But you do your take, leaving gaps, but then you use voiceover. And there's again, almost every recording app will have a voiceover facility. So you do your take, pick the one that you think is the best one that you want to use. It'll have gaps, but then just do a quick voiceover in between your spoken lines, reading in the other lines. And that also sounds really good if you do it in the same room, kind of round about the same time as if you do it in the same room, all the acoustics are the same, and you don't have to alter your voice. I mean, some actors will alter their voices just a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but you don't really need to alter your voice, even if you're using your natural voice. Doing the voiceover in those gaps, again, it can just sound brilliant. If you do it right, it should feel like you're in a room talking to somebody, and that's kind of what you want. You want, by the time it reaches me, the casting director or the director, you don't want them to know whether you were on your own or using a reader or using a Zoom reader or whatever. You want it just to feel as though everyone's there in a room together. And there's loads of tricks that I mean, I've had lots of self-tapes where I know people are in different continents, but it just sounds great. It sounds, as long as there's, it is weird, but sound does have that. If the sound is good on both voices, you totally buy it. You totally buy that. There's two people there in a room together, even if they're not. It's when there's that slight tinniness on the voice, the artificiality of it. I think that's what kind of can kind of spoil it, and it sort of turns some casting directors off. Some say don't use recorded voices or pre-recorded voices, but I think it's to do with the sound of the voice. If the voice sounds normal, then we'll never know. We'll never know. Yeah, we just won't know.
Some great tips there. So just to recap, so the idea is make it as natural as possible if you don't have a reader in front of you. Use Zoom if you can and record on there. If that's not possible, then maybe try and use a good speaker or a Bluetooth speaker. And then if not, think about doing your voiceover yourself and adding them into the gaps. So loads of different ways there that we can get around that problem.
Yeah, and every actor will have their own. I mean, it's not, and I have to say, it's not easy. It's a skill. So it's not something that immediately you're going to be able to leave these gaps and they're going to be exactly the right length. But it's definitely something that you can work at and practice and get more and more comfortable with. And I think once actors, you can do it. And I know it's a technical skill, and it's kind of burdening an actor with another thing to do. But it's but at the same time, I genuinely think it's empowering. I think it can really empower an actor to, if you know that you can deliver a really good self-tape entirely on your own without having to rely on anybody else. That's a good thing. I mean, I know lots of actors that have to do self-tapes, and they'll use their mum as a reader or their partners, and you end up in a fit of giggles because and it takes ages because because of the way they're reading. And even just now, I've run various courses myself, and even just now today I came across somebody wrote a little thing on an upload they did, and their husband is a writer and kind of a director and this and that. And so whenever she asks her husband to be a reader, the husband will not let her do what she wants to do. It'll all be like, oh well, why don't you try this one, try that one. And these things can be a bit of a pain. You can be kind of diverted from your own interpretation by the reader. And so I'm not saying don't have readers and we don't need readers anymore, but it's I think if it's good to know that you can do it all on your own if you need to, and hopefully then you'll be able to get not the exact performance, but you'll be able to well, yeah, you're in control of both sides, really. You know, I've always thought, like in face-to-face auditions, you're kind of you're beholden almost to the reader. If the reader reads really quickly, for example, you can't help but sort of keep up with them, and it could be completely the opposite of how you saw the scene in your head. So, you know, the reader is it's an important role, and so, you know, if you can be that role yourself, then there's no problem. You know, you know what you're trying to achieve, and so you can be your own reader, and you can hopefully achieve, get closer to the performance that you want to you want to perform, you want to do.
Well, great. So maybe it sounds like that's something to consider, even if you do have a reader available. Then if you do want to sort of get that reaction that's exactly how you picture the scene, you could do that anyway. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I do think so. And like I said, it's just everything is about practicing. And the first few times you do it, it's always I'm sure it's a bit weird. And kind of like the first time you do one of these calls or a Zoom call or anything, it's always a little bit strange. But after a while, leaving gaps, you'll start to, I think actors that do it often, if they're leaving gaps, they learn to instinctively know how long those gaps are, and they build all of that into their preparation. I suppose, you know, they build it all in. So yeah.
Great. I'm going to go to a couple of questions we've had from the viewers now. And of course, if you've just joined us, don't forget you are more than welcome to ask any questions during this talk. All you need to do is subscribe to the CCI YouTube channel and then type them in the live chat box. So the first one we've had today is from Kaylee, who says, hello, lovely to see you both. I wish I could say lovely to see you too, but I can't see you, Kaylee, but thank you for joining us. She says, I'm very keen to do your 21-day self-tape challenge. When will your next one launch? Actually, this is a great excuse to talk about your self-tape challenge in general. So maybe, Manuel, could you first tell everybody else what your 21-day self-tape challenge is, and then when's the next one, please?
Yes, by the way, I'm just really impressed that you're able to get the question up there like that and looking cool, and we can see Kaylee's face and everything. That's amazing. It's just like, ooh, look at that, so slick. Very nice.
Oh, I mean, I wish I could take credit. James and Rosie have taught me everything I know.
No, that's brilliant. That's really good. Yes, the 21-day self-tape challenge. I run a whole bunch of stuff actually under. I have a thing, I call it the acting habit. And it was just a few years ago. I had a mad idea one morning, and I put it all into practice, and it seems to work really well. And it actually started with a 30-day challenge. The very first one I did was 30 days, and it was just a bit too long. And then after that, I've run it as a 21-day thing. And but then from there, it's kind of blossomed into lots of other different kinds of courses. But the 21-day is still kind of it's the first and probably the best. It still kind of grabs people. And it's just it's kind of held on its own little platform where a whole bunch of actors, usually from all over the world, will sign up and then kind of go on a creative journey together. And every day they get a new role. They'll get a new character to interpret, and everyone does the same character. I've kind of chosen all the pieces quite carefully so that they can be done by any gender, any age, and more or less. And so yeah, everyone does the same piece. They upload it up to the site, and you can all comment on each other's uploads and ask each other questions about whatever it is that you want to ask people questions about. And and I kind of developed it really to give actors something to do every single day, because I do think it is about it becoming a habit and just being creative every day. So I wanted and actually learning lines was a really big part of everything, really. If you learn lines every day, then it becomes easier and easier. So I wanted to give actors somewhere where it was because I think I'd had on my website, well, you guys could find bits of script and learn bits of script every day, but I know that takes an enormous amount of discipline. Whereas if you sign up to a course and you get something in your inbox at 7 o'clock every day, then it forces you to do it every day.
And it also simulates the kind of audition process that normally an actor would get that email in their inbox. So I guess in that way, it's more similar to what we'll experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite heavy going because it's because I've kind of, when I did it, it was kind of like, oh, here's some in fact, when I started doing it, yeah, the pieces I had were really, really long as well. Some of them, but I realize how long it takes for an actor to learn these things, to interpret it, all of that. People are still spending hours and hours and hours doing it. I mean, sometimes you can turn it around in 10 minutes. Sometimes people spend hours and hours on these pieces. But it's so anyway, yes, my 21 days. I think over the course of a few years, I've kind of fine-tuned all the material in there now, and I'm really pleased with the structure of it and how it kind of progresses. And we start the first week or so is all kind of monologues, so that it's just a bit easier. You're just kind of getting used to things, and we talk a lot about eye lines and framing and things like that for the first week, but then we introduce other complications like other voices and what do you do if you don't have a reader and things like that. So as it progresses, and it just ends up, so really it was just about learning lines and kind of giving actors something to do, but it has turned into something a bit different, I think, because actors, they do just go on a journey where they start to understand themselves a bit more as actors and what they can do and what they can't do, and their range as well. I'm always so impressed by how much range individual actors have, because they're attempting roles that ordinarily they wouldn't be given. It's it's just a wonderful thing, and it increases people's I think within 2 or 3 days that everyone kind of understands how self-taping works, and by watching, because you get to see everybody else's self-tapes, you get to see framing decisions and eyeline decisions and what works and what doesn't, and within a few days everyone really becomes a super expert at self-taping. And then after that, there's like 2 weeks where it becomes, the self-taping is easy, that becomes nothing, and really then it all becomes about the creativity and interpretations, and people just discovering stuff that they thought they couldn't do and that they can do, and all sorts of stuff. And it's a lovely thing, and the communities are so great that come out of it. Anyway, the short answer to your question, though, Kaylee, the next one actually does start this Saturday, and then the last one of the year will start on November the 28th. So there's one on November the 14th. So I always start it on a Saturday. So yeah, next one November the 14th, then November the 28th, and then I'll leave it over Christmas, and I'll do another one in January.
Great. I mean, it sounds like something that would really help to kind of ease the panic that some actors get when they get those last minute self-tapes in, because if you've done it every day for 21 days, then you're sure to feel a little bit less panicky when those last minute things drop into your inbox. Yeah,
honestly it is. It's such a lovely, honestly, most days I get 2 or 3 emails from actors that say, oh, thank you, I did this course, I did your course in June or whatever, and now I've just got this job and this job and this job, or even just having a self-tape and turning it around without any panics and without and feeling that they've done their best work and all of those things. It's I feel really proud of it. It's a lovely thing. And I've now kind of expanded it to, I've kind of roped in lots of other casting directors to run their own courses, and I'm really proud of those, because I'm really aware how often actors get really ripped off, and so I've kind of tried to keep all my pricing really sensible, because I think, I look around and sometimes actors are getting charged hundreds and hundreds of pounds for all sorts of weird and wonderful courses, and you just think you're just getting ripped off. And I like to hope that I've kept the pricing really reasonable, and I on every course I run, I have pay what you can places as well, so that it's if you can't afford the fee, you can join a pool of actors, and random people are randomly chosen. So it feels good that I can that it's kind of inclusive. But yeah, there's some really amazing casting directors that do these shorter courses. They're 5-day courses, and again, I work with them a little bit to pick 5 different roles, usually from things they've cast themselves, but that again are quite flexible. And they work for 5 days with an actor over 5 different roles. And again, it's a similar thing. Everyone sees everyone else's interpretations, and everyone sees the feedback from that casting director on all the actors. And I think the casting directors, they love it as well, because it in a lot of workshops that you do with actors, you get to see them do one little scene, and then you move on and you see the next actor do a scene, and you're spending kind of a few minutes with an actor, and that's that. But on these kind of over the course of 5 days, they really get to see lots of different facets from each individual actor, and it really energizes the casting directors. Come away kind of going, wow, this is just really exciting to see actors approaching all these different roles and making them work, making the roles, even though they're written for completely different ages and completely different genders, but if you can make it work, it's a really impressive thing. So it's yes, it's nice. It's
Great.
I'm pleased with that little invention, I suppose, my little acting habit, my little
as you absolutely should be. I know that many people have benefited from it. So
Yeah.
we will touch on this at the end properly, but just quickly, if people do want to find out more information about those courses, where do they go?
Yeah, they've got to go to my purocasting.com website. I love all this tech stuff. I'm sort of a bit weird, and I really should have set up the acting habit as a completely separate thing. But I just tagged it onto my normal website, which is purocasting.com, and I just think, it can live there. But I don't do any Facebook, and I don't tweet or I don't do any of these. I don't publicize it or anything. It just kind of lives there, and I let if actors enjoy it, they usually tweet about it or tell all their actor friends about it. But yeah, if you go on the purocasting.com website, there's loads of other information on there about self-taping and just stuff that I've put up over the years. And if you're really diligent, I mean, you can go into my website and you can kind of almost see the genesis of it all, because for years before the acting habit, I was writing, learn lines every day and do this and do that. Here are my tips. And now it's all kind of been brought together in this really nice interactive course. And so yeah, purocasting.com, and you'll be able to see what's there. Yes.
And Kaylee says, thanks so much. Very useful to hear. And we'll definitely be joining one at some point.
Do it.
Now, I am aware there are a couple of comments that I'm just skipping out quickly. I haven't forgotten about you. I'm coming back. But just because this question does directly relate to what we've just been talking about. Lily says, hi, is the 21-day challenge more aimed for working actors, or would you also recommend to people who are applying for drama schools via self-tape?
Yeah, it's no, I mean, I've had people from all over the place. I mean, I would say it's kind of 18 plus, 19 years old plus. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work if you're much younger. Although I have had some younger people do it with their parents' approval, and the parents would sometimes amend some of the text for their child. But no, we honestly, I have all sorts of people doing it. Some really experienced actors, some people just wanting to see what it's like to be an actor, and yeah, every group kind of develops its own personality, and so yeah, I think it's yeah. I mean, what's a working actor? Geez, most actors are not working, so it's
well,
honestly
especially not this year. Yeah.
I mean, so it sort of depends a little bit on how old you are, Lily Grace James, whether you're if you're 15 or 16, it might some of it might be a little bit of a push, but you can still be done. I think the youngest I've had is about 14, but there probably are a couple of things that you just think, it's just not worth me playing that role. But yeah, it's always a wide range of people, and really it's I mean, I love it because I've had people obviously from all around England and Europe and from America and New Zealand and Australia, but lots from India, lots of Russians, and each, like I said, each one, people from Mauritius and Fiji. I've had actors from Fiji, and it's just wonderful to be able to see these actors from all over the place, all interacting kind of together with each other. And yeah, it's just a lovely thing. It is. It's a nice thing.
The power of the internet, really.
Yeah.
To do that. Yeah, great. Let's go back then to those people who I skipped out. Now that we've got this one's just actually more of a hello. It says from Gemma, hello, can watch live again for the first time in months. Having thankfully been working in a holiday park entertainment team for the past few months. Wow, lovely, Gemma, fantastic.
Nice.
She then did say, mine's not a question, by the way, just saying hi. There is nothing wrong with that, Gemma. We love to know who we're talking to anyway, so please always do come and say hi. So the next question is a very broad one. This one's from Glory Nicole, who says, are there any major do's or don'ts when it comes to self-tapes? Wow, there's a lot in there, isn't there?
Yeah, crikey, yes. I think, yes, I suppose a really simple answer as well is follow instructions. If you are given instructions, then really follow them, because yeah, there's oftentimes, and every casting office is different. We all have a different way of doing things, and we all have different requirements. And then even if you're really familiar with a particular casting office, if you're lucky enough to have done 5 self-tapes for the same casting office and they keep asking you to do self-tapes, don't get complacent. Have a look at the instructions for every single time they ask you, because I've got my kind of self-tape instructions kind of down pat. I know what I want and what I ask for, and I have my kind of document that I cut and paste and put in front of everything when I send it to actors. But I could find myself working with a director that wants to do something slightly differently, and even though I would persuade them that my way is the best way, if they really insist and I can't persuade them, then I will cave in, because I want to keep my job, and so I will I will do what they've asked me to do. You know, I will. So you know, I'll change my instructions. So even if you've, like I said, even if you've been lucky enough to do lots of self-tapes for somebody, just double check that they've not thrown in an extra little thing that you should be doing, or a thing that you shouldn't be doing. Because I suppose that's, if we've gone to the trouble of giving you instructions, which I know we can be a bit bad about as well. Some casting directors just send you the script and don't give you any kind of instructions at all. Hopefully we'll get better at doing that. But if we do give you instructions, please do follow them, and you know, please do, yeah, take a proper look. Even, I mean, you know, honestly, even as simple as knowing what role you're supposed to be doing, because sometimes you get a self-tape and it's like, you've just done the wrong role. How on earth did you actually, you know, why have you done the wrong role? But yeah, so to definitely read instructions. And I think honestly, the simplest thing is, I want to see your face and your eyes. And so I think as long as you in a self-tape, so just frame everything and pick eye lines yourself that will really help me see you and your face. And so it means yeah, just take a moment to make sure that yeah, just don't do anything too far in profile or kind of where the camera can't see. So don't be doing something that's down here where we completely lose your eyes. So yeah, I think that's a big do. It's just let us see your performance. Be aware that yeah, that's kind of what we want to see. And what else? Oh, do's and don'ts. I mean, there are so many. Yeah, there's I don't know about any other. Yeah, just as long as we.
They're the main ones, aren't they? The make sure you can be seen, make sure you read the instructions. Yeah. That will give you the best chance of the casting director actually being able to respond properly to what you're doing. I suppose.
And show and show a director and things. I mean, you know, watch your self-tape back just to make sure there aren't any sound glitches and things like that, and to make sure that your framing is okay. Because again, sometimes you're sent self-tapes and you realize that the actor just wouldn't have watched this back, because they would never have sent it if you know, either there is literally no sound, or there is or they're framed in a weird way, they're right off like this and you can't see them, or their eyes are chopped off. I mean, I've had self-tapes where the framing is this, and you just kind of go, did you not look at your self-tape? Did you not look back and realize that we just can't see your face? So
I have to believe that's an accident.
Yeah, I think so. And I think this was, I have to admit, this is probably a few years ago, before people became more and more you know, more and more competent at doing the self-tapes. But yeah, so you don't usually get such rookie errors these days, but still it's still kind of worth worth absolutely watching things back. But yeah, following instructions and just yeah, I think is a good one.
Great, thank you very much. So obviously you've already kind of mentioned about the fact that you have your sort of way that you like things done, that you usually specify to any potential clients, any potential people you might cast, exactly how you want your tapes to be done and sent in. Most casting directors do tend to do that as well. Now they tend to send an email with quite specific instructions. But of course, you do get the occasion where the CD might not have actually sent exact instructions for how they want things done. And I know that in general, you should always then check back if you're not sure on something. But say if you didn't have time to check back and the casting director hadn't specified whether they want, for example, a downloadable link, or whether they want the actual raw file sent, do you think there's a kind of go-to general rule of thumb for which one you should send if you're not sure?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't know actually. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's a good question actually. Yes, I suppose the best would be a downloadable link. No, an actual file, not necessarily a raw file that you've just. I think you should always. I personally think you should compress your self-tape and make it a bit smaller, and kind of little technical things like that. But yes, maybe just sending via WeTransfer the actual file. You know, I know for sure. I mean, on my courses, I show actors the system I use to present things to a director, I'll kind of show them behind the scenes and go, look, this is how I do it, and this is these are the tools I use to kind of present stuff. And that does involve me. I download absolutely every single self-tape, and because I want to have it on my hard drive, and then I watch all the I watch one character at a time. I don't like kind of jumping between characters. If I'm casting 5 different characters, I'm not very good at. An email will come in with a link or something, but I don't want to watch it there and then when the email comes in. I'll download everything, and then when I'm ready in my own time, I'll watch all the Johns, and then I'll watch all the Jessicas, and then I'll watch all the Aishas all together, kind of one after another, because that's just how my brain works. So I like to download everything. So I suppose, but I'm also, because I do like tech, I figured out all sorts of nefarious ways of being able to download stuff from Vimeo or YouTube or something. So I kind of don't mind how actors send stuff to me, because I can almost always find a way for me to download it. But I think other casting directors may not do that. So it's the safest bet is just to have an actual, just your file that they can then do whatever they want. If they want to upload it onto another website, they can. If they want to just send that one file to the director, they can. So possibly that, but
and of course, I guess the other way would be to give them the option. If you're not sure, if they haven't specified and you don't have time to check, give them both, see what they take.
Yeah, no, I guess that's actually, yes, that's not bad. But we should be getting better. I mean, I think we casting directors should start getting better at giving you all the instructions and I mean, it really was the early days. It was kind of like, oh, why are people sending me stuff that's filmed like this? And then it's kind of like, well, no one's giving anybody any instructions to film it this way around, film it like this, not like this. So we should start developing. We can't sit here and complain and whinge when something arrives and they go, oh, they've sent me a bloody link. Why did they do that? It's kind of like, well, tell them not to do that, or tell them, I go as far as telling you how to label the file. I give examples of label the file like this, and give examples and all sorts. In my instructions, I'll have a little photograph, frame it like this. So it shows you how to, what I kind of expect. And I think as soon as we get better at telling you what we want, then it becomes easier for you as well. There's no stress involved. Exactly what we're asking you to do. But yeah, you can do that. I'm always aware. I don't want I'm already asking actors to do huge amounts already, and even like with voiceovers and this and that and the other. And so yes, asking you to send it to me in several different ways, just because I may have not bothered to tell you how I want it. It's kind of like, oh, come on. So I don't want to piss you actors off too much. I want to make it easy for you as well.
Okay, so we say definitely read the instructions, but if the instruction doesn't specify, then we're thinking maybe a WeTransfer link is the best way to go.
Yeah,
if you're not
sure. But please compress your file. Don't don't send 3 GB files from your iPhone that we could project onto the side of the Houses of Parliament with perfect quality, because you do get those these huge super duper high quality 4K self-tapes, and it's kind of like, I don't need, and it eats up all your hard drive, and it's all that, and it takes ages to download, and you just think it doesn't need to be that super duper quality at all.
Just a note on that for anyone who's not sure, to compress your video, you literally just type that into Google, compress MP4, and you'll find it. Do you have any sort of ballpark figure that you're aiming for your file size? Is there a sort of maximum limit we should be looking at here?
I'm always a bit cautious about that. I'm always a bit cautious because so many different things affect compression. But I have seen some amazing, beautiful looking self-tapes that are only about 20 or 30 megabytes per minute. So you can't just say, oh, just do one for 20 megabytes, because it depends on how long the self-tape is. But generally, 20 or 30 megabytes per minute should be enough. But like I said, it's really hard to give those kind of, I don't want people to be stressing out and kind of going, oh, mine's 100 megabytes and it's only a minute long. 100 megabytes is still kind of okay. That's not terrible. But if it's 2 gigabytes, then you really should be thinking, that's just too much. It's too big, and you should be compressing it. And compression is incredible. Again, there are so many different factors involved. But if you've done your self-tape and there's not loads of movement and everything's kind of quite static and in terms of kind of backgrounds and things like that, then you should be able to compress it and still retain amazing quality. And it's just much quicker and simpler to, I mean, it saves everyone loads of stress. It'll save you loads of stress when you're uploading it, trying to get it to us, because it won't take so long. And then it saves us just hassle and time as well, because it's a nice, nice, perfectly formed file.
Sort of on a similar vein, the same idea of if the casting director hasn't specified, because of course you should always read the instructions, make sure you do what the casting director asks. But if they don't specify, these days, would you say you should, as a rule of thumb, add an ident or a title card, or do you think it's better to just go for it?
Honestly, my own personal, I hate idents. I don't like any of this stuff, but I know that commercials and things, you kind of need that. But no, I want the director to press play and see the character, so I don't want you to have to introduce yourself or do any of that kind of stuff. And I actually think a title card is redundant. I've at least with the system I use, we don't need a title card, because we appear on screen kind of like this. Like, is everyone seeing how we appear when it's got your name there and it's got my name here? And when
that's how everyone sees it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And well, on my system, it's a similar thing. You'd have all these kind of boxes on a screen where, when I send one link to the director, so they've only got one link. There's no passwords or anything, and they're not jumping around between Vimeo and WeTransfer or anything. It's all in one place for the director. And when they open up that page, there's lots of little thumbnails on the page, and then behind those thumbnails are your videos. But each time I create one of these spaces for an actor, I have to type in the actor's name, and I have to type in the role that the actor is performing. So that information is there. I mean, it's so the information is right there on the screen. So we don't need it then to appear within the footage itself. So I've changed my instructions, and I've started saying I don't want a title card. I mean, if some agents use some kind of software that automatically adds a title card, and it's kind of fine if there's a title card there, but I realize I don't need it. And if just again to save an actor 30 seconds so that you don't have to put a title card on, then that's great. That's 30 seconds you've saved, and it's in a way it's 30 seconds I've saved by not watching. Sometimes if you've got a title card against black, which is probably the best way of doing it, a title card against black, and then so that when that disappears, then the actor appears on screen and there's nothing distracting on the screen. But even if that black card is on the screen for 10 seconds, by the time you've seen 100 self-tapes, that's 10 seconds of your life that you're not getting back, that's giving you information that you already have. Yeah, so for me, I've realized that it's a redundant thing. But honestly, that is just me. I am sure most casting directors still say, yeah, put a title card. And if I was going to put a title card, I'd do, as it appears here, have a little title card down in the corner. Don't put a title card right over your face, and especially not when you started your scene, where it's kind of, because I have had self-tapes where the title card will appear here, and the actor's already acting, but you can't see them because their name is right in front of their face, and it's kind of like, no. And so even then when it disappears, you've lost the first few seconds and you're kind of discombobulated. You're kind of, it's just not needed. I think, a little title card in the bottom here, if it appears on screen with you, and then let it disappear after a few seconds, or a black card for 2 or 3 seconds with your name on it. But if it's for me, no title card at all. I just don't need it. And maybe people will catch on as well, depending on what system people are using to present to the director. Maybe people will kind of catch on and go, yeah, why have we got these title cards? We just don't need them. They're not, it's information we already have. We'll by that stage, we'll know your name and we'll know what role you're doing. But this all does mean that you've got to label the actual file itself that you send me. That has got to have a proper label on it. So don't just send me the generic name that your device is given.
3764.
Yeah, because I get that, and sometimes again, I'm downloading so many things all at once. I do everything in little compartments, so I'll spend an hour downloading everything without looking at it, but just literally physically downloading and jumping from one jumping from Vimeo to WeTransfer to YouTube and different things, and just downloading things without paying attention. And then when I go and look in my download folder, that's when you then, if you see IMG 4825.mov, that's when you go, oh no, that actor hasn't labeled the actual file, and that's when you get into trouble, when there's no, if there's no title card, that actor's just in the middle of a whole bunch of other downloads, and then it can be really hard to unpick. You have to kind of go back through your emails and try and figure out all sorts of stuff. So yeah, so yes, label the actual file with your name. That becomes really important.
So there you go, everyone. If you are self-taping for Manuel, no title card. Probably we're saying as well, if it doesn't specify that they would like a title card, then you probably don't need one. But if you absolutely are desperate to do one, or if they've specified, we're going down in the corner, this corner, just the name, or black card beforehand, rather than covering up your own face to conclude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Short as well, really short. We always press pause if we genuinely need to. You know, it doesn't need to stay on screen for ages and ages. And I'll say one really quick little thing, because people, certainly British people, if you're on Spotlight, don't put your Spotlight pin on your as a title, because it makes no sense. There's no one ever in a million years is ever going to pause your self-tape and type in the Spotlight pin manually. Or I've never ever, you know, I understand. Yeah, the Spotlight pin is a weird little thing. Don't, yeah, and I've seen that people do. They put it on their, you know, they'll put it on the front of their. So you know, and if I can't click on it and then be taken to that Spotlight page, there's no way I'm going to sit there and kind of go, right, 9673-2847-. Nobody does that. Nobody. So there's no point just having a thing saying I think Spotlight pin on your screen. Just put your name, maybe the name of your agents, and maybe the name of the role, and then we will be able to find you. But yeah, Spotlight pins are just again, that seems like really old technology. I don't know, you know, that's just an old thing that's hanging around. Anyway, yeah, there you go.
There you go. So now hopefully everybody's got what they need about title cards. We've got another little thing coming from Kaylee. She says, me again. Will there be one of the 21-day challenges starting in January? Moving house this month, but would like to plan ahead, being a recent graduate. So how often do you run these things, Manuel?
I try and do it at least once a month, and so usually it's either at the very beginning of a month or the end. So like there'll be one on the 28th of November, but in my head that's a December one, because if I did it the following Saturday, it would fall over Christmas. But so November the 28th, I can't be bothered looking at a diary, but I would pick a day. I would pick a Saturday that's either right at the beginning of a month or right at the end of a month. So I always try and do it at least once a month like that, and then depending on, you know, lockdown and various things, I'll squeeze in a few extras. So definitely back in March, I was starting them once a week because there were a lot of people suddenly going, what am I going to do? And so at the moment, so yeah, I started one on October the 31st. One is now, so they're like a week into theirs. Got one starting this Saturday, and then one a couple of weeks later. So yeah, usually I try and do it at least once a month, and it kind of depends on my schedule as well, because I'm not there every single day, super involved in every single course, but I like to feed back, and I am involved in it. So it depends on my schedule too. If I find that I know I've got you know, the day job, the casting job, then I won't run them as frequently, because I won't be able to spend as much time on you know, with each little group. But yeah, usually at least once a month, but then every so often a bit more frequently, depending on world events.
Great. So there will almost definitely be one in January, if not February, then next year.
Yeah.
So don't you worry if you're moving house, Kaylee.
Yeah, it'll be right at the beginning of yeah, definitely right at the beginning of January. But you know what, moving house is no excuse. If if Steven Spielberg said, hey, listen, could you self-tape for this? You know, I genuinely think this, you know, because I get lots of people that say, well, I'll put it off, I'll wait until I've got this perfect window to do it. And it's just, life doesn't work that way. And if you get a self-tape when you're moving house or you're on holiday or whatever, then you know, it's kind of like, yeah, you've got to be ready for that opportunity at any moment. And so I have had people do this course. I mean, people have been on holiday while they've been doing it, and I've had people do it from hospitals and from weddings. And, you know, and all sorts of, yes. I mean, it's great when you see someone that's gone away, maybe not their main family holiday for 2 weeks, but if someone goes away for a weekend, you'll see their setup changes. They're doing it from a hotel room somewhere. And again, it's about empowering an actor and making them comfortable, kind of going, you know what, I can do this. I can turn this around. And even though life is getting in the way, I can still do something and turn it around. And it's, yeah, I think that's just a good thing. But anyway, listen, obviously, yes, I don't mean forget everything, sign up now. But it's
I think it's a good point. Don't wait for the right moment, because there's those self-tapes that come through, they don't wait for the right moment. You can't pick and choose whether you get one while you're away or while you're moving. So it's the best training, really.
Yeah, it's always the time I get my, honestly, I'm the same. I'm I kind of, my schedule or my jobs are not set in stone by any means. I could literally get a phone call. God, I've said literally a lot. I've got a little girl, my teenage girl. She's just turned she's just turned 13, and every other word is literally. And I pick her up on it all the time, kind of go, literally, what do you mean literally? Because that's how they're talking at school at the moment. And I'm realizing I've picked it up myself. It's horrendous.
You can't help it when you hear it a lot, can you?
I know. Oh yeah, it's terrible. So yeah, I could, my jobs are very random, and yeah, and I try and go on holiday and do different things, and of course nothing ever really works out as nicely as you want it. So it's just good to be able to just to be nimble, I suppose, and be able to do things even when you think you can't, you possibly can't. But it's anyway, yeah.
Definitely. Kaylee said, that's great, thank you, I look forward to it. And then she said, that is very true, when we said the thing about, things are always changing. We also had a thank you in from Glory Nicole when you answered the question earlier. We've had a nice little comment come in from Mio, who said, just joining now, so rewinding to the top, looking forward to it. Well, I hope you're still with us. And okay, moving on to our next question. So Yasmin says, hi, would you have any advice for graduates starting out now during these uncertain times, especially ones without representation?
Oh, yeah, I suppose. Well, it's yeah, I mean, it is obviously these are extremely uncertain times, but it's uncertain times always for actors and for graduates. And there's always a whole bunch of new graduates every year, with and without representation, and and then there are actors that have agents who then retire, and all. There's always, I mean, it's always difficult and a pain, and you have to kind of just do the same things, and it is all about hustling and working and kind of trying to find work and trying to be engaged and try and it is about creating your own networks, and because really an agent is, you're piggybacking on when you get an agent, it's you're sort of piggybacking on their network in a really crude sort of sense. I mean, they'll do other things for you, but really what you want, you want to join an agent that already has loads of contacts with lots of casting directors and kind of has their finger on the pulse. But you can do that yourself as well. You can try and do that by just knowing lots of other actors and sharing information and just putting yourself out there and being really open to almost any kind of opportunity, whether it's paid or not paid, and especially creating your own things. You can, because again, now we've all walking around with these little mini studios in our pockets. There's nothing to stop actors from creating characters every single day, whether you're using scripts that somebody else has written or whether you're developing your own scripts and developing your own characters. And in a way, it's sort of that there hasn't been a better time for actors to be more creative in terms of generating their own work. And there are plenty of examples now of actors that have done that have started off just doing silly little exercises with friends, with each other. I don't want to say silly, that sounds really patronizing, but where you come up with a character and you make a little video, and it's not about getting millions of views on YouTube. It's just sending it to a friend and seeing if they like it, or an actor friend, and then they do something back. And I think you can always be acting and always doing things. It's all just as valid as doing a scene with Brad Pitt, in a huge movie. It's all acting, and it's all still just sort of developing your craft and doing things.
Do you know what? It's funny. I feel like there's an echo in here, because if anybody was watching our previous session, we had a multi-rolling workshop with Paula Brett, and who was saying exactly the same thing about creating and about this being the perfect time to sort of grab the bull by the horns and make your own stuff and put yourself out there. So quite funny that we've got listen to the experts. I know.
I think so. It is. It's so lovely, and it's lovely in actors. You're going to create the best role for yourself, because you know who you are and what you want to do and all that kind of stuff. And it's and you can really see you just have these tools like things to create and capture. And like I said, you don't have to show everything to everybody all of the time. It's not all about that. So there might be stuff that you just do and you abandon, and you just think, well, but it's all leading to, it will all lead to something, to success, just being comfortable and confident at doing things. So yeah, I think it kind of create, just try and hang out with fun, creative people, and again, these days it doesn't even have to be face to face. You can do so much remotely. I used to love it with just hearing when actors would get together on a Sunday afternoon and just improvise a scene or two, and they wouldn't even have to film it. It's just like spend an hour just doing it, and you could do this, even have an improvised conversation, or make up games with each other where you pick certain things out, I don't know, I'm literally just thinking off the top of my head, write down lots of different characteristics of a particular character and put them in a pot, Zoom someone, let them have done the same thing live in the Zoom, pick out a few things, and then just be that character and have a conversation with each other and see how long you can sustain it, and all sorts of stuff. And again, it's not about necessarily showing anybody anything, but it's just, you can do all of these things just to keep active, so that when you do get a slight opportunity, you never know that you might be writing to agents all the time, and suddenly somebody might say, yes, come in and see us, or yes, what have you been up to recently? And then you can genuinely say, well, I've got this gang going on, and I do this, and I have this thing.
Just be ready for it, basically.
Yeah. And none of it has to be professional, and it's just it shows that you're serious, and that that this is your life, and that you can't, that it's part of your blood, I suppose, that you have to be doing this. You are doing this.
The time has absolutely flown, and we've just about run out of time. But maybe we have time for one quick squeezing in question at the end from Rachel. And just as our final one, she said, would you say the same thing about the spotlight pin applies to showreels as well?
Oh, I'm not sure what you mean about that. I think there's
so I think she means, would you put, you were saying don't put your spotlight pin number on your self-tapes. If you've got an acting reel, they often have a title card at the beginning. What I think she means is, would you bother putting your spotlight pin on your show reel? Or is it the same thing of having to type it in?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's I think we're so used to just being able to click on something and then be taken to a page. And so if it's not that, if I can't click on your video and immediately be taken to Spotlight, I can't. I can never think of a situation where someone's going to pause your video and then they're going to open a browser and then they're going to go spotlight.com and then they'll go, right, what's that number? I just can't see it. Because, again, there'll be just a different way. If I want the director to see a CV, or the director says, oh, can I see their Spotlight page? There is just a different way that I would do that. There's no way that anybody's going to just take that. I mean, I know it's only 10 seconds or 20 seconds, but it's just something I have never done it in 20 odd years that Spotlight have been kind of putting these Spotlight pins. And it's kind of like, I know why they don't want, I know why they have a Spotlight pin, but it's just, if you send me an email, and I don't mind if you send me an email and it says Spotlight pin, because usually I can just click on that and get taken. Yeah. It's literally this thing of said it again. Someone's going to watch this back and tally up. Somebody can tally the number of times I've said it, and then I'll be really embarrassed. And maybe they'll get
do tag me in it, because I want to know as well.
Oh, God, yeah. You said it 47 times.
Well, thank you so much, Manuel. We have run out of time. We did just have a little thank you come in from Yasmin, who said, thank you, Manuel. That's very inspiring, which I absolutely agree with, Yasmin. It's been great to have you on today, so thanks so much for coming back to the platform. We've very much enjoyed it.
Not at all. Good. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, what a wonderful session we've just had. Don't go too far away, though, because in just 10 short minutes at 4:45, we will be back with a mental health webinar with Mary Birch. So hopefully